What would you do if your sister stole your inheritance right out from under you? Sarah was about to find out just how far she'd go for justice. It started 3 months after their mother's funeral, when Sarah sat in the lawyer's office expecting to hear the will reading she'd been dreading. Sarah had spent the last 2 years caring for their mother Margaret full-time. She'd quit her teaching job, moved back into her childhood home, and devoted every waking hour to making sure Mom was comfortable during her battle with cancer. Claire had visited maybe 6 times total. The lawyer cleared his throat and began reading. The house, the savings account, the family heirlooms, everything was going to Claire. Sarah felt the room spin as she processed the words. There had to be some mistake, but there was no mistake. Mom had changed her will just 3 weeks before she died, when the morphine doses were high and her lucid moments were rare. The lawyer mentioned that Claire had been present for the signing, had even brought her own lawyer as a witness. Sarah confronted Claire outside the lawyer's office. Her sister's face showed no guilt, no shame, just cold satisfaction. "Mom wanted me to have it," Claire said smoothly. "Maybe if you'd actually connected with her instead of just playing nurse, she would have felt differently." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the past 2 years in her mind. The countless nights she'd sat with Mom, the conversations they'd had, the promises Mom made that the house would be Sarah's. Something wasn't right. Sarah started digging through Mom's old papers, anything she could find from before the will change. In a drawer, she found Mom's journal from her final months. The entries confirmed Sarah's suspicions. Mom had been very clear about leaving the house to Sarah for her dedication and sacrifice. Then Sarah found it. An entry from 4 weeks before Mom died, written in shaky handwriting. "Claire visited today. She says Sarah is trying to isolate me from the family. She says Sarah is stealing from my accounts. I'm so confused. Could this be true?" Sarah's blood ran cold. Claire had manipulated their dying mother, fed her lies when she was most vulnerable. The entries continued, each visit from Claire planting more seeds of doubt about Sarah's intentions, more poison in a confused and medicated mind. Sarah knew she could contest the will, but legal battles were expensive and uncertain. She needed something more definitive. Then she remembered something odd from Claire's visits. Her sister always stepped outside to take phone calls, always seemed secretive, distracted. Sarah reached out to Uncle James, Mom's brother, who'd always been perceptive about family dynamics. Over coffee, he mentioned something interesting. During his last visit to Mom, Claire had been there with a man who wasn't her husband, Derek. She'd introduced him as just a colleague. Sarah's mind started connecting dots. Claire's marriage to Derek had always seemed picture perfect, the kind she flaunted on social media constantly. They'd just celebrated their 15th anniversary with a lavish party 2 months before Mom died. Could Claire be having an affair? Sarah decided to watch and wait. She started following Claire's social media more carefully, noting patterns. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, Claire posted photos that were clearly taken earlier, reused from previous weeks. Those were the days she was supposedly at her book club and yoga class. On a Thursday afternoon, Sarah parked down the street from Claire's usual yoga studio. Sure enough, her sister's Mercedes never showed up. Instead, Sarah tracked her phone's location. They still shared their locations from when Mom was sick to an upscale apartment complex across town. Sarah waited 3 hours. When Claire finally emerged, she wasn't alone. The man with her was David, Derek's business partner and best friend since college. They kissed goodbye at the entrance, completely oblivious to the world around them. But here's where it got interesting. Sarah didn't just want to expose the affair. She wanted justice for what Claire had done to Mom. So she waited, documenting every meeting, every lie Claire told Derek about where she was. She needed the timing to be perfect. Sarah also consulted with an elder law attorney who specialized in cases of undue influence. With Mom's journal entries, the timeline of Claire's visits, and testimony from hospice nurses about Mom's mental state, she had a solid case for contesting the will. but the attorney said it could take years and cost tens of thousands. That's when Sarah had her breakthrough idea. Derek wasn't just Claire's husband. He was also a prominent attorney specializing in probate and estate law. He'd know exactly how to handle the undue influence case, and he'd be extremely motivated once he learned what Claire had done. Sarah spent 2 more weeks gathering evidence. She obtained the hospice records showing Mom's medication schedule and cognitive assessments. She got statements from neighbors about Claire's rare visits. She compiled everything into a folder, including the journal entries that showed Claire's manipulation. Then came the affair evidence. Photos time-stamped and geotagged, cell phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts between Claire and David, credit card statements for a secret apartment lease. Sarah added it all to a second folder. 2 betrayals, 1 solution. Sarah invited Derek to lunch under the pretense of needing legal advice about Mom's estate. He agreed immediately, probably thinking Claire had sent her to make peace. They met at a quiet restaurant where they could talk privately. Sarah started with the estate folder. She showed Derek the journal entries, Mom's original wishes, the timeline of Claire's manipulative visits. She watched his professional mask slip as he realized what his wife had done. "This is actionable," he said quietly. "This is elder abuse." Then Sarah slid over the second folder. She didn't say a word, just let him open it. The color drained from Derek's face as he flipped through the evidence of Claire's affair with David, his business partner, his best friend, the man who was godfather to their children. Derek was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was steel. "I'll represent you pro bono in contesting the will. I'll make sure every bit of her manipulation comes out in court, and I'm filing for divorce tomorrow." But Derek went further than Sarah expected. In their state, infidelity affected asset division in divorces, and Derek knew exactly which assets Claire was counting on, like the inheritance she'd just stolen. He petitioned the court to freeze all of Mom's estate until the undue influence case was resolved. Within 48 hours, Claire's perfect life began unraveling. Derek filed for divorce citing adultery and served her papers at work. The estate was frozen. And David's wife, who Derek personally informed, filed her own divorce suit. Claire went from having everything to losing it all in 1 week. The undue influence case went before a judge 3 months later. Derek presented Mom's journal, the medical records, and testimony from hospice nurses about Claire's suspicious visits. The judge didn't hesitate. The will was invalidated, and Mom's original wishes were reinstated. Sarah got the house, the savings, everything Mom had originally intended for her. Claire got nothing from the estate, and in the divorce settlement, she lost half of everything she and Derek had built together. Plus, Derek got primary custody of their kids due to the affair. The story spread through their family like wildfire. Everyone learned what Claire had done to Mom, how she'd manipulated a dying woman for money. Family gatherings became awkward affairs where Claire was barely acknowledged. Her reputation was destroyed. David lost his law partnership with Derek and faced his own messy divorce. His reputation in their professional community was ruined. The secret apartment lease Claire had foolishly signed became evidence in both divorce proceedings. Sarah didn't gloat or rub it in. She simply moved back into the family home, the one she'd always loved, the one Mom had wanted her to have. She set up Mom's room as a craft studio, honoring the space where they'd spent so much time together. Uncle James visited often, telling Sarah he was proud of how she'd handled everything. "Your mother would be relieved to know the truth came out," he said. "Justice doesn't always look like forgiveness, and that's okay." A year later, Sarah ran into Claire at a grocery store. Her sister looked worn down, driving a modest sedan instead of her Mercedes. Claire opened her mouth to speak, but Sarah simply walked past. Some betrayals don't deserve closure. Derek actually became Sarah's friend. He'd thank her sometimes for opening his eyes, even though the truth had been painful. He'd also helped her invest Mom's savings wisely, refusing to take any payment for his years of legal help. Sarah eventually returned to teaching, but now she owned her home outright and had financial security. She'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about making sure the truth comes to light and justice is served. The inheritance wasn't just money and property. It was Mom's way of saying thank you for the sacrifice and love. Claire had tried to steal that, but in the end, truth and justice prevailed. So what would you do if family betrayed you at your most vulnerable? Would you fight back or walk away?